Hello and welcome to Criminal Records, the Daily Records weekly crime show. My name is Angus Hyde and today I am joined by Norman Sylvester, crime reporter with the Daily Record. Norman, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you, Angus.
Today we will be looking at some dramatic developments in the world of organised crime following a number of major police operations both home and abroad. Norman, I understand there have been some significant arrests in the last few days. Can you give me a wee update?
Yeah, it's been a dramatic few days in the world of organised crime with major reverberations both at home and abroad. It all sort of started in early hours of Friday morning, around about 3 o'clock. Police Scotland, in conjunction with police in Spain, Guardia Civil in Spain, that's the National Police Force, launched a series of dawn raids. In fact, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. A lot of the raids took place both in Glasgow area, Lanarkshire and West Lothian, and in Malaga and Barcelona in Spain. They were more or less coordinated round about the same time. These operations, according to Police Scotland, were targeted against members of organised crime groups or people allegedly involved in organised crime. There was 8 men arrested on the Friday morning. They've since appeared at various sheriff courts. I understand they've been remanded in custody and will no doubt appear again at a future date. And there's been similar arrests of 5 people in Malaga and Barcelona. They've also been detained in police custody. We understand that 4 of those arrested in Spain are Scottish. So in the main, the 13 are Scottish with one other person held. Now this, from what we've learned from Police Scotland, has been an operation 2 years in the planning, identifying people that they believe are allegedly involved in organised crime at quite high levels. And this carefully planned operation, which took place on Friday morning, resulted in these 13 arrests. And we also understand that notwithstanding the international dimension to this, there may also been police forces in Holland, Netherlands, Turkey and elsewhere involved. So this is not just a localised thing. This appears to be a police investigation operation on an almost global scale.
So this is an international effort. Can we expect any more arrests in the coming days or weeks?
Well, following on from the drama of Friday morning with the various arrests, both at home and abroad, we've since learned that on the Saturday, a Stephen Lyons, who is said to be a senior member of the Lyons crime group or Lyons crime family, he was detained at an airport in Bali, or Bali airport in Indonesia, as he arrived. Now, it would appear that the authorities in Spain were or have been seeking his arrest and had issued what's called an Interpol Red Notice. That was flagged up by the authorities in Bali when he came through passport control, and he was detained on Saturday by immigration officials there and has since been paraded in public. It was featured in the record photographs of his detention, his arrest, and then he was paraded in front of other law enforcement officials. So we've got Stephen Lyons detained on the Saturday. We understand that the Spanish authorities, through the Guardia Civil, the National Police Force in Spain, are seeking his extradition back to Spain. Now, the Balinese authorities have shared some information publicly, and they have said that Stephen Lyons has been sought back in Spain for setting up fictitious companies, money laundering, and generally being involved, allegedly, in a kind of international criminal network. On top of that, we then discovered that Stephen Lyons' partner, Amanda Lyons, she was detained at a property or premises in Dubai, and she's been taken into custody there. We understand that the Spanish authorities are also, or may also seek her extradition back to Spain to face charges. The further backdrop to this is that, which were previously reported in the Daily Record, was that Stephen Lyons had previously been living in Dubai. He was arrested around about September last year. He was held in custody and asked to leave by the authorities. He's since tried to base himself in Bahrain and then Qatar, and we understand he was also been arrested and then subsequently asked to leave there. So the latest development would be arriving in Bali to seek some sort of refuge in Bali, and when he's gone through immigration, he's been picked up on this red Interpol warning notice.
Yeah, so Stephen Lyne's a big name. What is the significance of the arrest in terms of the fight against organised crime, and what will happen to those already in custody?
At the moment, we've got 15 people in custody, including, we mentioned, Stephen Lyons there. The likelihood is there will be criminal proceedings both in Scotland and Spain. The Spanish system is slightly different. There'll be court appearances, and certainly in Scotland, and possibly trials further down the line. We also know that this is part of a major effort by Police Scotland in recent years to target organised crime and people who they see at a senior level, as opposed to folk that are just at a kind of grassroots level. So we could anticipate other arrests, other organised crime groups being targeted. We spoke yesterday with Graham Pearson, who's a former Director General of the Scottish Crime and Drug Enforcement Agency, and his remit when he was head of that organisation was to target organised crime, and he was very impressed by the police operations over the weekend and the number of arrests, and he anticipates that would be further arrests as police develop their intelligence sources and develop the flow of information. And we know what's slightly different about this is not a localised police operation. This is one involving police forces all over the world. So we've got Spanish police, Scottish police, we've got the National Crime Agency in London. We know about police forces in Turkey and Netherlands involved. Now we've got police authorities or law enforcement authorities in the Middle East, and obviously now Bali. So it seems to be an international effort to target people involved in organised crime or who are originally from Scotland, though they may be basing their operations abroad now. So it's a major effort and probably shows the global nature now of organised crime.
Yeah, an international collaboration there. A big one. The public will be looking and seeing our headlines on Police Scotland doing X, Y, and Z. But are Police Scotland winning the war against organised crime?
The arrest in the past few days is a major success for police in their battle against organised crime. Whether they're winning the war is another issue. Organised crime just won't go away. What is clear from previous successful police operations in the past sort of 5 or 6 years or so, which has seen a lot of major crime figures be given very lengthy sentences. One of the problems is as soon as somebody's arrested, there's a vacuum. As somebody fills that vacuum, the money to be made, as we probably know from drugs, is astronomical. It's the level of wealth that can be enjoyed from the drugs trade. Probably a lot of people don't quite understand it. A lot of the people that are involved in organised crime and involved in international drugs trade, the global drug trade, are making fortunes, are living very lavish lifestyles. And for every person that the police arrest, there may well be somebody only too willing to take their place to enjoy that riches, albeit maybe not for a short period of time. There's also suggestion in the records today that a rival crime group, which we've identified in the past, the Daniel family or the Daniel crime clan, who are traditional, been a long-running violent feud with the Lyons dating back 25 years, that there's maybe some celebrations on their part at the demise of Lyons family members and their arrest. But I think, that police will be targeting everybody. There'll be no favouritism. Anybody involved in organised crime will be a major target of the police now. And we've now got this situation in Scotland where they've got the support, of authorities across the world, and that wasn't necessarily there in the past on the current scale. So are they winning the war? It's difficult to say. They're winning quite a few battles, and they certainly seem to be one step ahead of the opposition at the moment.
Yeah, you've covered crime for a long time, Norman. You know this game. Are the arrests likely to lead to a reduction in the violence we've seen over the years, and particularly in the last year that we've seen with the gang wars?
One of the interesting developments might be is how it affects the high levels of violence we've seen between organised crime groups, particularly the long-running feud between the Lyons and Daniel crime families, which we've seen and we've reported on for the last 25 years, and more recently in the last year. That particular feud has seen 2 murders in Scotland in the last 25 years or so. Also, more recently, we saw the the murders of Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan in a bar in Fungirola in Spain in May of last year. And in the last year, we saw an upsurge of violence, both in Edinburgh and Glasgow, where there was fire bombings and machete attacks, which appeared to be targeted against members of the Daniel family and their associates. There hasn't been so many incidents recently. Will we see a resurgence? It's difficult to say, but what I think is quite clear is the police do have a handle on it. We've seen through the recent violence, police set up Operation Portalage to target this fire bombings, machete attacks we're seeing in Edinburgh and Glasgow. That's resulted in 63 arrests. We've seen quite a number of people already appeared at the High Court, been sentenced to lengthy prison terms. So the police seem to have the measure of those involved. Will we see more violence? I think it's a question of watch this space, but there has been a kind of a bit of a lid on that violence. Whether it'll come back, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, as you say, we've seen potential celebrations from rivals, but how do you think that the various organised crime groups who have been targeted will react?
There's no doubt that the police operations will have put a dampener on organised crime groups' operations, but there's so much money to be made. And we mentioned earlier, there's so many people just willing to fill that gap. We've seen that in recent years where some fairly major organised crime group figures have been given lengthy prison sentences, in some cases life terms, but people have appeared almost out of nowhere to fill that gap because to take up the contacts. Quite a few of the organised crime groups now have got international contacts with, the crime cartels in South America, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, where a lot of the drugs, particularly cocaine, is sourced. So that it's, if somebody's able to fill that gap and take on the contacts, I think they'll only be too willing, because I think the money is so astronomical that there'll always be people tempted to take over. And despite the lengthy sentences being handed out and the number of arrests, there's plenty of people willing to fill that vacuum. So it's very much a watch this space. There's no doubt that the police operations will put a dampener on organised crime, and maybe taking a bit of a standing count at the moment. But there's so many people willing to step into the vacuum that it remains to be seen what could happen in the future and who will be the sort of figures that might emerge to fill that vacuum.
Of course, and we will be the ones looking to see what the next developments are. If you have a question for the team, you can email reporters@dailyrecord.co.uk with the subject line Criminal Records. We will be back next week. In the meantime, you can subscribe to listen to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts by searching for Criminal Records, or you can watch it each week on our YouTube channel. Thank you.